Very good evening to you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. You are tuned to the football pitch live on YouTube. And as the great Alan McCoy once said, it's the earliest we've been late for quite a while. As I say, you have tuned to the football pitch. Go ahead, like, subscribe, tell all your mates, make sure your budgie gets subscribed, tell your granny. Let's get our subscription numbers up a wee bit. You know what I mean? Let's get them up a wee bit. We could do with all the help and support we could get. You are tuned, as I say, live to us tonight. I should really write this down. Maybe I wouldn't trip over my words, but never mind. We are looking back at last weekend's Scottish Cup fixture. We'll be looking ahead to the games in Scotland this weekend. Big game between Celtic and Hearts this week. Hearts side obviously unfortunately knocked out a Scottish Cup duty last weekend. As always, I'm joined by Dennis Newell tonight. Good evening, Dennis. How are we doing? How's the cough?
Good evening, Cammy. Yeah, I'm okay. Cough's still there. Gradually going, but still there.
Good evening. We're also joined by regular contributor, almost regularly, almost every week now, but certainly every fortnight anyway. Graham Duffy, Hearts supporter extraordinaire, still smiling, even after, unfortunately, last week's disappointing exit. Good evening, Graham. How are we doing?
Very well, lads. Hope you're both doing well.
Hi, Graham.
Yeah. Doing smashing, doing good. I think I'm doing a wee bit better than Dennis. Dennis is still struggling to string a couple of sentences together without coughing. But hey,
the cough, though.
That's it. Well, listen, I think a good place to start. I know it says we'll look back at last week in Scottish Cup. But I think a good place to start is let's get the European fixtures out the road first of all. Last night, Rangers 1-0 home victory against Ludogorets, and Celtic nothing up and seemingly cruising against Genoa over in Italy, a side led by Scottish player Lewis Ferguson. But ultimately, Celtic ended up hanging on, I think, is a fair way of describing it, and got a 2-2 draw, and it did really hinge on the sending off early doors, Graham, just 30 minutes or so into the game. Maeda getting sent off. So was it Hattati? One of them anyway. Getting sent off. 2 yellow cards within a short space of time, Graham. That did turn the game.
Yeah, and it's stupidity. When you've got 1 yellow card, don't get involved in a second one straight away. It was just stupidity. I mean, Martin O'Neill pulled his hair out, what he's got left. It's just daft. I mean, Celtic were in cruise control for most of that game. Obviously, the first goal's a really poor mistake for the keeper. I don't know what he's doing. But fair play, Celtic took advantage. And even down to 10 men, they did get that second goal. And you think, they've got something to hold on to here. But then Bologna just came tearing back and probably could and should have won the game late on. But it's not a bad point for Celtic, given the circumstances. But it's just so stupid from Hattati. I mean, he's not a young lad, an experienced player. You don't get involved when you've just been booked. It's ridiculous. And he could have easily cost Celtic last night. But a point's not a bad result away from home when you're down to 10 men.
Yeah, I think Dennis had Celtic been offered a point away in Italy prior to the game. It's something they would have, as Graham says, snapped their hand off. But under the circumstances, it probably is 2 points dropped.
Without doubt. Bologna are not a good team. They're struggling in their own Italian league. And I can see why. Last night, they just didn't offer much for me. And a normal Celtic, the Celtic that we're seeing this season, would have torn them apart, to be honest. A decent striking force, maybe another defender. Celtic would have run over the top of them. Tati just made the mistake. Look, that happens in the heat of the moment. He's put his foot in, and he shouldn't have at that point. But he's committed the same as quite a few of the players are. And when they're not got that skill factor sometimes, that's what happens. He's just late in getting there, and he's put the foot in for the second booking that I thought was... can't do much about that, except he's let the team down, but he's not going out there deliberately to do that, But as Graham says, he should be more experienced in being in that position. But Celtic are struggling. They really are. I mean, I watched all the game. I watched the Rangers game as well, which we'll come on to. And Bologna, I just don't know. The boy Ferguson that plays with Scotland, I can't see what he offers. I mean, he hadn't been playing for a few games there. and they gave him the armband. So he gets the captain's role, he gets out there, and eventually it's taken off, and the armband goes to somewhere else. And I'm thinking, how does that work in a team? You know, you're the captain like McGregor is, and it stays there, and he's on, and you know he's got to last 90 minutes. He's not been playing. Was there a bit of sentiment in the fact that it was Celtic he was playing against, and that's why he gets starting? I don't know. But it just doesn't do enough for me if we expand that to being at the World Cup either. I just don't think it gives me anything. I would say I'd go and watch him. Let's put it that way. If you look at Gilmer in Italy and the other boys that are there, I look and I go and I say to myself, yeah, they'll get something they're going to add to the Scottish squad. But with Bologna, they're flat. They didn't offer anything in my eyes last night without getting into the nuts and bolts there. And then Celtic, when they lost the man, I thought I was watching Auchinleck. All they done was get the ball and defence and blitter it up the park. That's the word for it. They never used any skill factor of trying to play out of defence. It was just clear your lines, panic stations. And I'm thinking to myself, you could end up losing this 4-2. It was that poor in relation to the way they went about the game. They never tried any build-up play. They lacked up front. I just thought it was a very, very poor game. It was a hard watch, but the Rangers one was worse, which we'll come on to. But Celtic got a draw, which was good if you look at it in paper, you know, but it's not played in paper. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. You've got to watch it. Disappointing. But again, a lot of games with the Old Firm this year have been poor to watch. But being loyal to watching Scottish football, yeah, I grind it out and I just pick faults rather than take any good points out of it, because there is a lot of poor players out there. The wee boy Ken, I said that before we came in here. Honestly, our lower divisions have got better centre forwards without any question of doubt. Yet Martin O'Neill persists in playing them. I know they've signed a centre forward. Thomas, I can't pronounce his second name. Cvanrcara. He has came from Mönchengladbach, I think, as loan. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, he looks the part, by the way. I'll give him that. And sometimes that's not the case. You look the part and they become hopeless. But he certainly looks as if he could do the job. And that would really help when we look at the game that's coming up, as we were just touching on. But they definitely need to go and get more players before this January window shuts. I think they'll still need another couple of players. Celtic, without a doubt, they need another forward, no matter how good this boy is. And I would say they need a defender because the right back position with the boy Donovan and Ralston is just shambolic. It really is. The young boy's not ready for that first team yet. And Ralston is at the other end of the spectrum where he should really be at another club. So Celtic are struggling without rattling the gums too much of being going through the whole team. And I'll tell you what, they really need to get their act together for this game against Hearts. And the turning point could be as a big guy up front, fit for purpose. We'll only see that come Sunday's match.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, but again, when we look at last night, 2-each draw in Italy, it's not the worst result. But
no, definitely not.
Bringing it across to the other side of the city, we've just Archie's asking, do you boys think Rangers fall off in form in the coming weeks? To be fair, I don't think they've hit form yet. Let's be honest, but it feels like they aren't that convincing despite their win streak. And that's the thing, Graham, is obviously Danny Rose is trying to make honey out of whatever you want to call the Rangers squad. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, Rangers, they are struggling. They don't have much quality and depth. And indeed, when we look at that team that took to the park last night, not a Scotsman amongst them for the starting 11. But Graham, Rangers are struggling, but Rose seems to be able to get them set up in such a way that number one, they're becoming more difficult to beat. And number two, looking at last night, they're able to sneak a result. And I think that's a sign of Rose is doing something decent as manager, Graham.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, he's got a really poor squad there. And it's not his squad. He inherited that squad. It's not a good squad. And the fact is he's managed to get results. They're not playing fantastic football, but they are getting results. And that's what matters. It's about getting results. And they're doing that. Last night wasn't a classic. Decent finish from Diamande, but it wasn't a classic. I think they should have probably hammered because I don't think that team were particularly great. But it is a win. And they are picking up results. And the longer that Hearts and Celtic drop points, they are going to think they're back in this title race, and I suppose they are. Now, they have obviously signed a couple of players, a Danish international boy who wasn't obviously playing last night, so they maybe will get better, and I do think they probably will sign maybe 2 or 3 more before the window shuts. But it's just about getting results. Performances don't matter. As long as you win games, no one's going to care, but they don't have a great squad. You know, Danny Rose come in there, and I think he's done very, very well. Russell Martin's left an absolute shit show in that squad. Because I look at that team and I think, to be brutally honest, how many of that Rangers team get in a Hearts team right now? Not a lot of them. If I'm being brutally honest, not a lot of them. But it's not a great squad, but they're winning. And that's all that matters. If you can get results, don't need to focus on performance, just win. And that's what they're doing, getting results. So fair play to them. They're not great to watch, but they're winning. And that's all that matters.
Yeah. At the moment, that is all that counts, Dennis, you know, is managing to grind out a result or two. And as I say, under Danny Rose, since he came in, he's done an exceptional job, you know, of turning around, as Graham says, an absolute shit squad, you know, and you cannot hide for the fact that Rangers are lacking quality all over the park, you know, with the exception, I think, probably of a man that many Rangers fans were wanting to hunt from Ibrox last year and Jack Butland. You know, I think Butland has shown his abilities time and time again. Go back to the old Firm game, you know, where he kept Rangers in it in the first half. You know, he's shown his ability week in, week out. But beyond that, you know, that they're lacking up front, they're lacking in the middle of the park. Defensively, they can be a bit shambolic, although they do seem to be keeping it a bit tighter at the back just now. Again, how much of that's down to Butland? But as I say, they need to. You're talking about Celtic need to bring in players. Rangers need a whole new squad, you know, and it's going to take Danny Rose time. And if he carries on, I think he's going to be given that time, you know. Which, if you're a Rangers supporter, I think you should be more than happy with that.
I've got to agree they are poor, and again, without going on too much of a rant, that team that were playing last night is the worst I've seen in Europe. And I actually question myself to see whether this Europa League is of value with the way the format's played because there's so much garbage in it. I have looked at quite a lot of the Europa League games this year and the standard has been appalling. And I'm thinking, because they're lower divisions, they're at lower position in the leagues. They're not Champions League teams. That's why they're in that. But the standard of that team that actually Rangers played against last night was shocking. The only thing that was attractive, and even McCoy's pulled the boy up for it, was there something going on there with the guy's hairstyle. It was that poor. You know, I would say to any youngster now that if it wants to be trendy, have a nice haircut, and he likes football, go to Bulgaria, son, because you'll make yourself a nice living over there. You don't need to play well. You'll get a job out there. And you'll be able to keep your hairstyle and your tattoos up to date, because that is what that team showed last night. I'm not going to pick the guys' names out because you just need to watch the game and you would see it. Absolutely horrendous. They're spending too much time in the barbers, honestly. And Rangers, as we go to them, yes, they got the result. I thought the goalkeeper was really at fault with the shot. I think he should have stopped that. But as Graham's rightly said, it's all about getting results. And Danny Boy seems to be able to get that for him. And he is dealing with a whole load of garbage. I'm looking at the team now, and I keep looking and thinking, could he do a job with somebody else? No. With the exception of Butland, who we've talked about before, the rest of them could go tomorrow. There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Gassama, maybe Gassama. He looks as if he's got a talent, but he came and he looked, oh, by the way, he's a player, and he just fizzled it.
Yeah.
But each time I see him in the ball, I'm thinking, see if you were maybe with a better team, I'd love to see that. But it's not going to be Rangers because they've got nothing. So
I mean,
they're dead in the water for me. They're poor to watch. They really are. And the actually stringing passes together is embarrassing. And as you rightly touched on, and I mentioned that before we come in here, and we are talking about the fact of Scotland being in a good position. we can't be in a good position if we're starting matches without a Scottish player in the Old Firm, or even if it's Hearts. I mean, Hearts has got a scatter in there, which is good, and they're good players. Celtic and Rangers have got nothing in real terms. I mean, do what you got. I think I counted maybe 3 or 4 in the Celtic team. Out of 2 teams, your starting lineups of 3 or 4 players. Come on. What's happened to the Scottish game and the talent coming through? If I was at Ibrox or Murray Park or Lennoxtown as a youngster, I would be going, I'm going to bust a gut here and get out of this country because there's no future here for me. That's what I would be thinking. You need to get yourself a shift because you're never going to be in the position. If you can't get a run out now, you'll never get it because the sign of the times was last night.
I think a prime example of that is the guy Lyle Cameron that was at Rangers, didn't get a game and now he's gone to Aberdeen because the guy just couldn't get a chance.
Yeah.
But we used to see it, Graham, a lot of players that wouldn't make it and go to the Aberdeens or the Dundees. You could fill teams and they're good. I mean, I gave the boy Ralston pelters, right? But that's in a Celtic and Scotland strip. He's not good enough for that level. I'll tell you what, I bet he would do a right good job at somewhere like Dundee or St Mirren or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll not win them the league, but he'll play at a decent enough level. He's at his depth at Celtic and Rangers, no matter how much a servant he is. It's the same with me. I wanted to play with Celtic or Rangers or one of the big boys. The bottom line was, it's never good enough. But if somebody's willing to put you in that team, it's not your fault. And that's what I think is the case with some of these guys. Like I've mentioned Kenny as an example. So, no, I honestly believe that these players don't go out to have a poor game, but there's talent and there's talent. And Celtic and Rangers at this moment in time do not have the talent of the standard that is expected of the Old Firm. Now, we keep going on about the Old Firm because it's almost, Graham, like a West of Scotland trait all the time, as if there's only 2 teams exist in Scotland. There's not. And it's refreshing that Hearts are coming along here with a real strong challenge. So much so, I'm quite easy to say, I still think when you get a result on Sunday, you'll go on and win the league. Now, that's never been said in, I don't know how many years, 20, 30. At this time of the year, you can predict a team that could go and win the league outside the Old Firm? No. So we need to get away, and my head needs to get away from thinking there is no football outside Celtic and Rangers, which is not the case. There is more out there, and we're seeing it this year. And I mean, as much as we looked at Dundee and written them off early doors, I watched them last week, the week before. I thought they were great. They were good value. And I thought to myself, that's decent. Certainly better than any of the Old Firm matches I watched in recent games.
Yeah.
So, no, but that's all I would say about Rangers and Celtic at this moment in time. It's not improving. The results, the golf's not as bad as that, but I think any team going to play these two should be confident, especially when you look at Hearts for the game on Sunday.
Well, just before we move on to that game, we'll answer Archie's point earlier on. So, see, what do you think? Do you think Rangers' form will fall off in the coming weeks, Dennis, Graham, or do you think that with them bringing in another couple of players before the window ends and the fact that they've got a manager who can get a tune out of them, that they will carry on challenging Hearts and Celtic towards the end of the season? Personally, I think they will. I think Rose have got a manager there who can get something for the players.
You reckon that they will continue in the vein they're in?
I think they'll continue in the vein they're in. Yeah, I think we'll have a 3-horse race towards the end of March, maybe, and then we'll maybe see the quality of Hearts and maybe even Celtic sort of push on. But towards the next few weeks, I don't think Rangers' form will drop off enough that they'll slip out of this title race.
I think it's down to the other teams, not Rangers, to be perfectly honest. I don't think Rangers have got enough there that you could actually say it's their qualities that will win the matches. I think it's down to, you look at the Dundee on Sunday. If Dundee are up for this game and really want something out of it, and to be other than survivors or struggling at the bottom of the league, you need to go out there and bust a gut and beat Rangers. And I think there's the talent and the gulf between the two is very little now of any of the teams in the Premier League. So it's down to the opposition to determine whether Rangers are successful. Rangers can't play much better than what they're doing at this moment in time. That's the point I would make. I don't think they can do anything extra.
I agree with that, but I think Rolls has set them up that they're very, very difficult to beat, and they can sneak a couple of goals. And
well, that's going to be the case. Cammy, you couldn't have managed that team any worse than what was
done.
No,
I get that.
Managers, right?
When you consider where they were when he came in, what Russell Martin had done to them, you were looking at a side bereft of confidence, a side who couldn't play together, a side in turmoil. And I think Rolls has managed to galvanise things a wee bit together. One thing I will disagree with him in, and whether that's him or whether it's the board of directors or director of football or whatever you want to call them, is I hear they're talking about shipping out Finlay Curtis on loan. And I think that's a mistake. I think he should be staying at Ibrox, But personally, I just think that there's enough lack of quality about the other clubs that Rangers can hang on in there, I know obviously they're going to have a game against Hearts coming up reasonably soon. The next Old Firm game as well, But I just think they've got enough about them, or the manager's got enough about them, that he can manage the side that they managed to stick in there. That's personally it. I don't say they're a great side by any manner of means. That I think we all agree that they're shite. But as I say, I don't think they're.
That's exactly it.
That's it. There's just another 8 or 9 sides who are as shite as what they are, and if we throw Celtic in, we can make it 10 sides, and I think that's the difference.
Dundee and Sunday. Now, Dundee are not sitting that pretty, right? So you've got to say to yourself, they're fighting for their life, and they're doing better. What?
And they're doing better than we predicted at the start of the season.
Without a question of doubt. I mean, they're sitting in 9th now. I'd never thought that for a minute with the way they started. But there's a chance for Dundee, right? Then they've got Porto on the 29th, which is next Thursday. And then you look at it, Hibs. Hibs are not going to roll over at them. Kilmarnock could be easy enough for them. And then they've got another difficult tie, which I don't think is actually valid when I look at these ties, because the other tie they would have would be against against Stranraer in the Scottish Cup. But Stranraer, just to pick up on this point, played an invalid player during the cup tie last week. I think it was against Queen's Park, and they were scrubbed out the competition. Now, how much money will that have cost Stranraer? Sorry?
I say Rangers against Queen's Park in the cup again.
Yeah, but you think how much money that's cost Stranraer as a paper exercise. So then they've got Motherwell on the 11th of February, just taking as one on. Then they've got your own lot, Graham, the 15th of February. And by that time, we'll know whether the teams before that are capable of taking points off Rangers. The point I would make, Cammy, just to exhaust this, is Rangers will not go through the season unbeaten.
No, I get that. I know. I'm not saying for 1 minute they will.
Yeah, but that's where I look at it and I go, right, they won't go unbeaten. They will go with results that you question and say, starting on Sunday, if anybody's got to put a dent in them, back to the original question, then Dundee's got to be the team that does it.
Yeah. But I think Hearts and Celtic will drop points as well, But anyway, that was just, I just thought it was, we should answer the guy's question. You know what I mean? He did come on at that point. That was us. But before we look back, we will look back at last weekend's fixtures. I think the time is right to look ahead to probably the biggest game of the season, certainly the biggest game of the season since the last time Hearts and Celtic met, is this weekend at Tynecastle, Sunday afternoon, Hearts against Celtic. It promises to be a cracker. Hearts, obviously, unfortunately, last week, but that means they can now concentrate in the league. And Celtic, as I say, not a great result for them last night. And the fact is, you guys are at home as well, Graham. So still obviously missing Cammy Devlin, which is a bit of a blow for you. But at the end of the day, as Dennis says, get 3 points for this, and by Christ, you're sitting pretty.
I think there's been a lot of games this season that have been described as the biggest game of the season for Hearts, and this is just another one that falls into that category.
No, I get that. I know.
We're in the position now that we're 6 points clear. So whatever happens, we're still top.
Yeah.
Losing Shankland and Devlin's a massive blow because they've been our two best players this season, and Benny as well. We are trying to get Mark Leonard, a Scottish guy that was at Birmingham on loan. I think he was training today. We're trying to get him signed up for Sunday. If he comes, a really good signing. That would be good for me. And I still think we've got plenty of options going forward. You've got Kizridis, you've got Braga, you can play Kabori. I think we've got enough going forward to cause Celtic problems. They play, for example, whether it's Ralston or Donovan at right back. I think somebody like Kizridis, who the last time played at Tynecastle against Celtic was outstanding. I think he could cause problems again. So I think for me, the pressure's on Celtic. They have to win. You know, if they lose and go 9 points behind, it's a massive, massive dent to them. A draw still keeps us 6 points clear of Celtic. So I think the pressure's on Celtic. But it's massive. It's absolutely massive. But I like what McInnes has said this week. You know, he's been very honest in front of the press again. It's like, we're not feeling sorry for ourselves after last week. We know we can cause Celtic problems, and he's right. We do have players in that team that can cause Celtic problems. Mm-hmm. I was at the game last week against Falkirk. I had no. I'm trying to use the right word here. I think we were rightly knocked out. We didn't deserve to win. We didn't do enough. And it's probably one of the first times this season that I felt we lacked that creativity going forward. I saw a few folks saying, Cammy Devlin was a big miss. For me, it wasn't Devlin. It was the fact we didn't have enough quality going forward, which is strange to say. And it felt like the only game we've not really done enough going forward. Mm-hmm. But I think it's such a big, big game. The crowd will be up for it. 3 o'clock kickoff on TV. I just hope Hearts start the game well. Get at Celtic right for their first minute. They were just coming off the back of a draw with 10 men. That could take a lot out of them. Hearts have got to be at it right for the start. We have to press McGregor. Don't let him get touches on the ball. Whether that new guy plays for Celtic, I think he'll probably on the bench. It's a big game.
I think he'll play because Kenny has got a calf injury by chance. So I think you have got to put on this big guy. And if it doesn't work, you take him off after half an hour, if he's no fit. But the bottom line is, you can't not gamble to some degree because of the quality being that poor that you've got. So, I think, Graham, that's imperative. They look at how they're going to start against you.
Yeah. I mean, I think Martin O'Neill's done a decent job since he came back. I mean, he set Celtic up reasonably well. Again, they don't look a particularly great side, but they've got results under O'Neill. But I think Hearts are still going at this with full confidence. But we've got big games to come, though. We've got this game on Saturday. We've got Dundee United the week after. Then we've got St Mirren. Then we've got Hibs. Then we've got Rangers. We've got big games to come. I don't know if we're going to get 15 out of 15. But if we could get even 9 points out of these next 5 games, I think that's huge. And then after that, we've got some reasonably decent fixtures. We also know that next week we will probably have a GU back, a record signing. We'll have a new striker and potentially 2. We'll have Mark Leonard in. By that point, after the game next week, we'll have Benny back. So the squad's still decent. And I do think, I've said this weeks ago, I do think the January window is where the title's going to be won. And if Hearts come out of this with still a pretty decent squad, then we can definitely do something this season. But Sunday is massive. Obviously I hope Hearts win, but I couldn't call it because I think it's so tough. But I personally think the pressure's on Celtic. They have to win. And I think O'Neill has basically said himself, it's a must not lose. And I can't remember the last time I've ever heard a Celtic manager say that about a game against Hearts. It's a must not lose. So the pressure's on him for me.
Hearts, when I look at the Scottish Cup tie, it's not a bad thing really about that, because the league, no matter what way you want to look at this, is the key priority. What you do, if you have more cup ties, you have more chance of injuries. You've lost 2 key players already. Shankland, for me, I don't think will be as much of a loss as Devlin. I think your engine and everything that makes Hearts tick the now was coming for that wee man working his socks off in the middle of the park. And we've actually been on here every time you've been on, Graham, as well as when you're not on, and singing his praises about his contribution to Hearts this year and how much he's improved. Now, everybody should take a leaf at his book, because if he can do it, there's no reason why the rest can't. Your 2 central defenders, without any question of doubt, are the best we have in Scotland. And I'll be very disappointed if somewhere down the line one of them don't get to the World Cup. The big test and we keep saying it's a test. It's a test for everybody. I've mentioned Dundee for the game against Rangers. It's not any different a test for Hearts. When you look at it and you make the point, which is really valid, if Hearts lose on Sunday, you're still 3 points ahead, right? And it is the fact that I don't think Celtic, like Rangers, are good enough to go through the season without drawing points. And that's a big plus here, because it was always a given that when teams played the Old Firm, these were just a free hit. If you get anything out of the games, it was a bonus, right? It's more than a bonus if you can beat Celtic, because you go to 9 points, which Celtic won't make that up, not with the squad they've got. And the way they're dilly-dallying on the transfer window is looking to me as if they're not prepared to dig deep and actually go and spend decent money to improve that squad. So therefore, that looks good on the piece of paper that says who's at the top of the league, and that's Hearts. So I think if you can get by Sunday's game and just looking at the other fixtures they've got, they're no easy coming up, because I don't think the season Hearts will go through it without being beaten as well. You've got Dundee United coming up, then St Mirren, then Hibs, then Rangers. That run is quite a difficult one there. And if you look ahead, and I'm sure Derek McInnes is doing that, he'll be calculating what points he's going to get out of these games and just letting the Old Firm go on with the disastrous season they're having and hoping, and likely so, thinking that they will drop points somewhere along the line. But you have really got to keep your head above water and no lose track of that 6, potentially 9 points come the, Sunday night. I think you're capable of doing it. I don't think there's many players, if any, in the Celtic team would get into the Hearts team. So therefore, that's an edge in itself. You know, we'd never really have said that this time last year or beyond. So I think these are good. And the litmus test as well as 2 key injuries to your team. Is that going to have an impact? You're saying because you know the squad better than I do, it won't make an impact. I think it could to some degree, Graham. And you just need to watch the game on Sunday to see if there's any impact on it.
I think this is where having a big squad does help, because it means that other players have to now step up with the injuries we've got. Other players now need to step in. And if Mark is available, I think he'll slot absolutely quite nicely in the captain role. And we've got options up front. You can put in Kabori, you can put in Kabangu, whatever. We are trying to get another striker in this window, which hopefully will happen. But the other thing as well, if you're Derek McInnes, before they go on that pitch on Sunday, all you've got to say is, you've beat Celtic twice this season already. You know you can do it. Go and do it again. You've beat Celtic twice. You beat Rangers twice. You can do it. Go and do it again.
And that's, I mean, his team talk's done for him pretty much. You know, I mean, the Hearts, you know, no matter what happens, Hearts have probably been the best side this season. You know, let's be honest, whether they implode or whether they carry on, Hearts have been the best side in Scotland this season. Derek McInnes has done a fantastic job. Now, we pilloried him, and I keep saying it every time you're on and every time we talk about Hearts. I don't think any of the three of us were overly enthused at the tail end of last season when it was announced that he was going to be the Hearts manager. You know, but he's rammed many, many people's words, not just ours, down their throats in terms of the job he's done. Yeah, he's maybe slipped up in cup games, you know, but the long and the short of it is, if you go on towards the end of the season and you're fighting for that title, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. The ultimate, Graham, how will Hearts fans cope if come the end of the season they haven't lifted the league? You know, will that be a massive setback, or vice versa? If they do win the league, you make a European challenge next season and actually get beyond Christmas in Europe.
Thing is, we are way ahead of schedule. Like, we should be, because when Tony Bloom first came in, he said, "I can see Hearts winning the league in the next 10 years." We are way ahead of schedule here so far. So I do think, no matter what happens this season, I still think we'll challenge again. We've already made signings for next season already as well. We've got the laddie Josh Tate coming in. We've got other players to come in as well. So we're building for next season already. And to be honest, most Hearts fans like me have always said that we won't win the league. So if we don't win the league, most Hearts fans have said the same thing. If we do win it, it would be absolutely incredible. Easily the best thing Hearts will ever do. And I don't know how you ever beat that. I mean, getting Champions League football would be amazing. But we are well into the start of a project here. And you look at the fact that you bring in guys, you look at the whole Jamestown stuff, you're bringing in guys that no one's heard of, and they've done so well. Cledo Braga's come in, he's got the best song I've ever heard in my life. He's got 12 goals. Keziridis has got 5 goals and about 12 assists. No one knew who these guys were. So come the summer, we'll probably sell these guys for far more money than we spent on them. We'll make a profit on them. We'll go strengthen again. You know, this is going to be a never-ending cycle with Hearts that we will just keep on strengthening through Jamestown. And I still believe Hearts will challenge again. This season, yes, winning the league would be incredible. But this is a long-term thing for me under Tony Bloom. So I don't think Hearts are going to go anywhere soon. If we don't win it this season, it is what it is. We'll just go again next season. And I think it's for a Hearts fan who last season was dreading every single game. Yeah. I'm excited for the future. I genuinely am.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing when you're talking about Derek McInnes doing the job, well, the guy's been handed a right good bag of tools, right? The analytical system that you are working with has proven that it's unearthing people that are more than fit for purpose in the job, right? And you just need to look through what has been brought in that fits are a good fit for the Hearts team. And he can't be more buoyant or upbeat because he's got the tools, as I say, that are on the park. And like the fact that he's a good manager, although I think he struggled big time at Kilmarnock, again, probably didn't have the right tools. But the thing is, he has at Hearts, and he's proving that he's capable of doing the job. And it's not so much that he's trying to reinvent the wheel at Tynecastle. I see him letting players just do their own thing almost.
Yeah.
With his shape and his discipline and just keeping it right. He's not trying to tell guys how to take a throw in or a free kick. He looks as if he's got that part of the game with his experience down to a T. And I think that's what Hearts are seeing. He's a good fit for the club. And the system that you are working and bringing the players in, identifying them, is worth its weight in gold. The old firm can't do that. They're left stranded with the way that the whole infrastructure at Tynecastle has been worked at this moment in time. Why they can't do it, I don't know. They're spending millions upon millions, and the amount of money that must have been squandered at these two clubs over the last 10 years is disgraceful. And yet you look at what Hearts are doing, and it shows you it can be done if you get the right infrastructure in place.
I also think, well, if you take out the Falkirk game last week, which is disappointing, but it's a cup game. The 2 games before that, we're down to 10 men against Dundee, win the game, keep a clean sheet. The game after that against St Mirren in the league, a big game at Tynecastle. We go down to 10 men after 13 minutes with Benny getting sent off, and you think, oh, this is going to struggle now. We win the game with 10 men. I mean, honestly, I've said it before about the mentality of this team. The work rate and the mentality of this team is night and day compared to last season. They work their absolute socks off. I know that should be a given, but it's not all the time. But Derek McInnes doesn't accept anyone not working hard. I was watching him last week against Falkirk on the sidelines. I can't remember who it was, but in the first few minutes or somebody gave the ball away. McInnes was going mental at them. That's what I want to see. Like, he doesn't accept standards dropping. And I think that's great. His man management is fantastic. And every interview he does, whether before a game or after a game, I don't ever think to myself, I pretty much agree with everything he comes out with, because he doesn't get down. He doesn't get too overexcited when things aren't going well. When things are going well, he's just very, very calm, very level-headed, and you can see the players respond to him. A bit like, with Rangers, Danny Rowe is getting the best out of these players. The job McInnes has done with these players, yes, he's got a very good squad to work with, but you're still going to be a good man manager. And McInnes is doing that, because I guarantee last season, if we go down to 10 men, we ain't winning those games. So there's a real shift in mentality here. And that look for me on Sunday, if it may happen if we go a goal down, the heads won't drop. They'll just think, right, we can do this. Let's just go again. So that's massive for me.
I think that one thing last week is watching his after-match interview last week. I remember he was critical, almost, of the refereeing decision. I think something went last week to VAR and it went against Hearts or whatever it was. I can't mind exactly what it was. But McInnes came out after the game and his criticism of the ref, even that was quite reserved. You know, there was no flying off the handle or he's cost us the game or any of this. It was kind of, listen, he's made an arse of something and it's one of the things, you know. It was almost, even that was quite reserved. And I think that illustrates your point there, Graham, is he's neither up nor down, you know, as you say, he is quite level-headed. And I think, to be honest, we are seeing a Derek McInnes we've not seen as a manager for a number of seasons, where he has been, you know, whether it was at Kilmarnock and he was under pressure because they weren't getting results or whatever it was, you know. I think definitely we have seen a different side to Derek McInnes this season, as you say, where he has been more level-headed, less inclined to fly off the handle. And that must be good behind the scenes as well, when your squad of players can look across and say, right, okay, the gaffer's not going to lose it. You say, okay, he's having a go at players and things like that for making an arse or something. But if you've not got a manager who's going nuts and is out of control, if you like, that must be good as a squad of players as well to see, Graham.
Well, you even look at last week. I mean, obviously we lose Benny, we lose Cammy, we lose Shankland. And straight away after the Saturday game, on the Sunday, him and Graham Jones, the sporting director, are meeting to discuss. So straight away he's thinking, right, what can I do to sort this problem? And he's doing it. And again, even his after-match interview, we've lost 3 big players. And he goes, do you know what? There's no point feeling sorry for ourselves. We've got to get on with it. We've got a big squad. We need to deal with it. And I think that's really good as well. I think that's really good man management, because they could have just gone, it's a real disaster losing those guys. But it's like, we can't feel sorry for ourselves. There's no point in doing that. We've got a big squad. We need to cope with that. And he's doing it. So I think Derek McInnes, for me, has been absolutely fantastic so far. Yes, is he going to get things wrong? Of course he is, because every manager does, every player does. But it's how you react to that. And to be fair, after, not that we've lost a lot of games this season, but after any defeat, we've reacted really well. We've bounced back. He shows again, the players have got that mentality to go, right, we've lost last week, we go again. We put that right. And I think that's fantastic for me. And I think the Hearts fans are buying into it, what we're doing. You know, again, it's not always going to be fantastic. The football's not going to be great. But the fans are going along with the ride. And we're loving it. And if we win on Sunday, I mean, that would be absolutely massive. To go 9 points clear of Celtic, that would be huge. I'm not going to say it would knock Celtic at the title race, because we've got big games to come. But that 3 points to go 9 points clear could be absolutely huge. And then surely to God, people will actually stop doubting this Hearts team, because I've seen it so often this season focusing, Hearts will fall apart, Hearts will collapse. Yeah. Well, so far, that's not happened.
Yeah, it's conversations I have in work every week, that's for sure, you know. But moving away from Hearts, and as I say, getting us on to the rest of the fixtures this weekend, just starting just now in the Championship, up at Gatefield. We've got Arbroath against Morton. That must be a game for a television. Bloody hell, who the hell's going to sit and watch Morton? You know, they are an absolutely appalling side. 4-0 defeat last week at Stenhousemuir in the Cup as well, you know. Side for a league below them.
But it's only Morton are doing well though, Cammy, until Dougie Emery left.
Emery left, yeah.
I mean, they were holding their own, and the ceiling's just come in on them. Yeah, and it seems strange with the way the club has ended up going, because first Andy Millen left, and then you would have thought, right, okay, Dougie Emery's got his people running about him that the club want. And then he leaves, and who goes with him? It was really strange the way it all worked out.
I'll be honest, I don't think Dougie Emery could get out of Morton quick enough. I definitely don't think Dougie Emery could get out of Morton quick enough for his career anyway. You know, I think he's done the right thing, because I think behind the scenes, Morton are a shit show. But as I say, that's the game. The chairman
resigned as well.
Aye, well, that's what I mean.
So, you know, it doesn't look a good place to be a challenging team. You know, because we always think Morton, they're always near or thereabouts, and they do compete quite well in the Championship. But, you know, you just look at them at this moment in time, just trying to get a wee quick look at where their league position is. You know, they're sitting 4th bottom. You know, they could still end up in trouble, because they've got 22 points, and Ross County and Queen's Park have got games in hand.
Yeah. And
Morton could be in trouble. Could be in trouble.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think they
will
will
be fixtures. Yeah,
and fully deserved as well. You know, I think obviously what's happened at that club. So looking ahead to the games in the Premiership tomorrow. Obviously, we've touched on Sunday's games with Hearts against Celtic and Rangers against Dundee. Other games tomorrow: Aberdeen against Livingston, Dundee United against St Mirren, Falkirk against Hibernian, and Motherwell against Kelly. You've got to fancy Motherwell in that one. Championship games tomorrow: Airdrie against a resurgent Ross County. Be interesting to see how Stuart Kettlewell gets on there. Partick Thistle against Ayr United. Wraith Rovers, we just mentioned them, Dennis, taking on Queen's Park. And St Johnstone against Dunfermline, undoubtedly game of the day. And let's pat ourselves in the back, Dennis. Last week we sat here and said that Dunfermline will give Hibs a game, and that's the most likely place for a cup shock. And true enough, that's exactly what happened last week. So, played Dunfermline. Unfortunately, both Edinburgh sides knocked out the cup last weekend. Into League One, we've got East Fife against Queen of the South, Hamilton Accies against Cove Rangers, Carly Thistle against Alloa, Montrose against Peterhead, and Kelty Hearts against Steny is a 5:30 kick-off tomorrow. In League Two, Clyde taking on the Spartans, Dumbarton against Elgin City, East Kilbride against Edinburgh City against Annan. It's all starting to fall in again on Edinburgh City, and that 15 points deduction could end up ultimately be the undoing of them. And Forfar Athletic taking on Stirling Albion tomorrow in the last of the games in Scotland. When we move down south into the Premier League in England, again, not a game many are going to be rushing to watch, I don't think, on the television. 12:30 kick-off, West Ham against Sunderland, Burnley taking on Spurs, Fulham against Brighton, Man City against Wolves, and Bournemouth against Liverpool. And Graham, something you'll be interested in, I'm pretty sure you know it already, but just before I came on air, it looks as though Spurs are interested in acquiring Andy Robertson.
Yeah, it's a strange one, that, because I know Robertson's not getting a lot of game time, but if Kirkes gets injured, we're kind of screwed for left back. But I understand where Robertson will leave. He's not getting game time. There's a World Cup coming up. But I just think Spurs under Thomas Frank are just awful. Like that move not worked out at all. Spurs fans want it on. Seriously, it's just been an absolute disaster so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen the onward group chat. You know, Andy Burrows is desperate to see the back of Thomas Frank. I think Andy would have been quite happy to come on tonight and slaughter them, but just things have worked out against him tonight in terms of his timing. He's got so much going on with his other podcasts and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, under Thomas Frank, Spurs have been an absolute shit show. They managed to get a result in Europe the other night, 2-0 home win over Borussia Dortmund, but they have definitely been struggling. And as I say, that's not going to be an easy game up at Turf Moor for them tomorrow either. Burnley, they did you a game. Is it last week you got a one each draw with them, Graham?
First half, Liverpool should have wrapped up, but again, second half just completely switched off. But then on midweek against Marseille, I thought Liverpool were really good. I thought they played decent stuff. It's like, where's that been all season? Why could you not have that all season?
100%, yeah. And before we finish, as we're looking ahead, the games on Sunday in the Premier League: Brentford against Forest, Crystal Palace against Chelsea. Changes obviously going to be coming in Crystal Palace with their manager as well moving on. Looks like the end of the season. Newcastle United against Aston Villa. That should be a good one. And game of the day, Super Sunday. It's going to be deserving of whatever billing it can get. Michael Carrick takes his Manchester United side to the Emirates to face champions in waiting in the shape of Arsenal. Just looking back at last weekend, Dennis, again, we sat here last week. It's either going to be nothing each at Old Trafford or Man City are going to go and win 4-0.
Yeah.
Oh, that one completely wrong. I think I'd messaged on the Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's a Manchester United performance I don't think anybody's seen coming. And Michael Carrick, what a job he done last week in terms of his team selection, his tactics, everything. You know, the way Manchester United played with passion, commitment, and a damn sight of a great deal of ability. and they were fully deserving of their 2-0 victory last week, and it could have been 2 going on 3 or 4, maybe even 5-0, with goals disallowed, and Woodward getting hit. Graham, it must have been a hard watch in terms, obviously, seeing Manchester United doing so well, but what football it was if you managed to catch it.
Yeah, I mean, again, United raced the game for the Derby game, and fair play to Michael Carrick, got his tactics spot on. I thought United wanted a far better team, but I thought that's probably one of the worst I think I've ever seen Man City play. They were awful. I mean, the last few weeks, they've drawn 3 and then lost that game. They were in a title race a few weeks ago. They still are, but they've just been awful recently. I mean, where is the Pep Guardiola team? And again, this is going to sound mental, right? And I know I'm going to get caned for this, but I know he's a fantastic goal scorer, but Erling Haaland has absolutely no technical ability at all.
No, I know. Yeah.
He's honestly, his hold-up play, his link-up play, if he's not scoring goals, he doesn't look interested. I thought he was awful last week.
Yeah. 100%.
To be honest, it wasn't much better in the Champions League, to be honest.
Oh, Christ, that was...
So I think that when you look at Man United, and we'd written them off because of the state of play, but there was 2 points that was raised. One, I felt a managerial change, which nobody ever agreed with me, it wasn't a good fit, the last manager. No question of doubt about that. He got longer than I thought, only because he's credentials. But it showed that with a change of manager, and also somebody that's been there under Ferguson and the way they played, it had that slight glimmer of the way Ferguson went about games.
Yeah.
Their goals were like that. But the commitment, and I mentioned this last week, is if players are not willing to commit with that kind of talent that they've got, natural talent, you don't win games. And the bottom line is they committed themselves. And that's what more teams are needing to do. You're not telling me Tottenham's not got talent, but are they busting a gut the same way as we actually seen when we talk about Tottenham being really bad? Could they turn the corner the same way that Man United does? Because they've got talent, they need to bust a gut. Then you can turn around and say, no, they're no good, they're no fit for purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Man United was questioned the same way, and they put the effort in and the hard work, which is needed in every game, with every club, with every player. And if it doesn't happen, there's what you end up with. A Man City who are just tottering along. There's no the fire and brimstone that you've got to win matches. And they're not going to win it in pure ability. They won't. And you've just touched on Haaland there. Yep. If he's not really working hard, then he just looks an ordinary player. But when he plays, he's world class. There's no doubt about it. But he needs to work harder. And so much so, the manager's no slow in taking him off. But that was a great game, I must admit, and it was good. I don't mind when I'm wrong. We actually thought that they'll get blown away with Man City, and it didn't happen. And as you rightly say, it could have been up to 5 goals in that game for Man United. They were excellent, and it was good to watch
as well. I thought they were absolutely outstanding last week. And fair play to them. Because as I said, it's something that I don't think many fans seen. Even the most ardent Manchester United fan wouldn't have seen that coming. So no, fair play to them. An absolute cracking performance. Well, that's about us guys tonight. I know it says we would look back at last week's cup fixtures, but let's be fair. I think we've touched on most of them anyway, and certainly the most pertinent ones. Next week we are joined. We're going down to the Lowland League next week, Dennis. We are joined by Colin Nelson again of Cowdenbeath. Colin's going to pop in and tell us how the season has gone in the last 3 or 4 months since he was on the programme. So he's going to be with us next week. And we will talk back. We'll obviously look back at the Hearts Celtic game as well, and anything else pertinent. But as I say, it'd be good to talk to Colin next week. All that remains to be seen is say thank you very, very much as always, Graham. It seems like we have you on when something's happening important at Hearts, and as I say, that seems to be now every couple of weeks, So we will get you on, and we'll get you on when it's not been a Rangers or Celtic game, so as it doesn't seem like a West of Scotland bias, the way Dennis was bumming up the West of Scotland teams again here.
No, I wasn't bumming them up. I was destroying them.
Hearts have won the league. Get me on when Hearts have won the league.
Well, listen, we'll maybe need to wait 3 or 4 weeks for that again. But no, we will get that arranged anyway. To say, it's always great to have you on. It's always great to get your take on Hearts. And the fact is that this season been able to be so much more upbeat than obviously, unfortunately, last season, under Critchley and Naismith, So, no, it's great what's happening at Tynecastle. So, as I say, thanks very much as always. Dennis, thanks as always for yourself winning next week. Then you've got a couple of weeks behind the controls. A couple of Fridays after next week. But as I say, it'd be good to get Colin on next week. All that remains to be said again is go ahead, like, subscribe to the show. It does help us out a hell of a lot. There you are. Like, subscribe, because after all, everything is happening.